Good afternoon and welcome to another episode of the Happy Head podcast. My name is Paul, I'm your host, and today I've got a guy with a really interesting name, Daniel Zyphone. Hello, Mr. iPhone, how are you doing?
I'm very well, Paul. Thank you for having me on.
So, a pleasure. What have you been up to?
We moved into our new home sort of 10 days ago, so just been unboxing everything and still got one box there, which I'm procrastinating about, but that needs to be done today.
That's not too bad. I know people who've moved from one house to another, and sort of 5 years after moving, there's still boxes in the attic that haven't been unpacked. It just sort of demonstrates how much crap we kind of take
Yeah,
around in our lives because if you'd have actually needed the stuff in those boxes, it wouldn't take you 5 years to unbox them.
that's very true. Yeah. I don't know whether that makes me feel better or worse. So,
Well, I mean, if you've been in the new place for a couple of weeks, you've only got one box left, then I'd say you're
yeah,
doing pretty good, to be honest with you.
I'll take
So,
that.
Dan, what brings you to the show?
Um, so really, uh, from our last conversation, um, and everything that you share around people's stories and really around people's struggles. The main thing that, first of all, I wanted to share was the human side of not just me, but everyone. And we all go through struggles. And through my own work with clients, it's so important to recognize that we are all human and we all do struggle. And I think there's so much liberation in sharing our own struggles because really that's what helps us all connect. And as human beings, that is what we crave. We crave human connection.
So, if I remember correctly, you are a PT who's kind of morphed into doing life coaching. Is that right?
Yes, yeah, that's exactly right.
So, how did that happen? How did you go from kind of like being a PT to a life coach? What was the kind of transformation there?
Cool. Right. So deep breath. There's a few things that I've shared around my story over the last few years, and I don't want to. I don't want to go back too far. I'll probably go back four or 5 years ago from the point of being a personal trainer to my business really starting to take off. I was just in the process of opening my first studio. I just got into a new relationship, and uh, if I sort of fast forward to what happened, my business came crashing down. I lost the relationship, and I was arrested under an allegation of attempted rape. So I'll fill in the blanks. So along that journey of opening my personal training studio and getting into a new relationship, I really my intention behind opening my studio and creating the business and getting in a relationship and sharing all about my business and relationship on social media, it was coming from a place of not being good enough. And upon reflection now, the reason why I wanted the business and the relationship was because I was trying to prove to the outside world that I was worthy. And what happened as a result of that was there are a few experiences over the last few years that really kind of proved to me that I wasn't worthy. And I needed those experiences to knock me on my ass and really leave me at rock bottom. Because if I wasn't at rock bottom, I never would have been able to look inside myself and look at the parts of myself that really needed healing. And what I mean by healing is really needed loving and loving by myself. And when I started to recognize all these things and all these like sabotaging behaviors that I'd had, and how I was putting my worth into financial status and put my worth into other people through relationships, it really enabled me to look at all the areas of my life where I was playing small and I was so fearful of rejection. And as a result of that, over the last few years, I've made it my mission to just really dive into self-love and personal development and And as a result of that, it's made me realize that as a personal trainer, I was kind of only able to sell my clients half the transformation. I was kind of selling them on, if they improved their body and their fitness and their health, everything else would follow suit. But actually, from my own experiences, that was only half the battle, because once I started to feel good in my body, I still wasn't able to, navigate relationships well enough. And really, I still wasn't able to feel the love that I really wanted to feel. And it made me realize when I was at rock bottom that the love that I wanted to feel was the love that I needed to give myself. It wasn't the love that someone else could give me, or the approval that others would give me for, having a business, or, whatever it was. Just the little pats on the back from whoever just weren't enough. And no matter how much I was looking for approval and love from others, it would always fall short, because that actually wasn't what I wanted. I wanted to connect to myself, and I could only do that by looking at all the areas in my life where I was struggling, and coming to a point in my life where, instead of looking at the areas of my personality and my life that I was struggling with through the eyes of judgment, but being able to look at all those areas through the eyes of compassion and empathy, and actually taking the stance that a loving, nurturing parent would take. And that's one of, love, and, putting my arm around effectively me and just saying, everything will be okay. Like, I've got you. And from that place, everything has changed in my life. Everything.
This kind of lack of self-respect, not deserving stuff, and all the rest of it, had that always been with you, or was it something that kind of crept up on you over time, the self-realization?
You know what? That's a really good question. And upon reflection over these last couple of years, it's been with me my whole life. I was raised from birth as a Jehovah's Witness. Now, that religion had such a detrimental impact on my self-worth, because that religion basically tells you that this is what you need to be perfect and for God to love you. And if you fall short of that goal by any means, the message that you receive, it may not be directly, but indirectly, is that you're not good enough as the person that you are now. And that, receiving that message throughout my whole childhood, has really affected the whole trajectory of my whole life. And it's only over the last, really, probably just over a year or so, that I've been able to work through so much of that deep conditioning that has affected me throughout my whole life. And it's been able to, I suppose, go through lockdown and take away all distractions and really go deep inside myself and start healing those parts of myself that I had still held a lot of judgment and shame towards.
When you talk about coming deep inside yourself, did you work with a therapist? Did you use hypnosis? What kind of process did you go through to kind of go from recognition, going through the process, to coming out the other side?
So it started off when I was at rock bottom, and as my business was starting to take off, and then it all came crumbling down, I got into about £15,000 worth of debt. I was drinking, I was doing drugs, I was having sex, one night stand, anything and everything I possibly could to try and escape what I was feeling. From that place, I had this realization that I needed to love myself more. And I don't know the exact moment that sparked that realization, maybe a culmination of everything. But from that place, I started reaching out to coaches. I invested in my first coach about 4 years ago. And then from there, it's really been a process of reading everything I could read, listening to podcasts, and really just being so much more aware of my own thought processes. And last year, I invested quite heavily into coaching. And then once I come out of that coaching program, I went into counseling. I had talk therapy for 3 months. And really that was the kind of like the icing on the cake for me, being able to just sit in front of another human being and just talk about my whole experiences and everything that I'd struggled with, all the mistakes I'd made, and really just be in a space of like zero judgment with another human being and know that I'm okay. I'm not a bad person. And for me, that story of you're a bad person if you don't live up to Jehovah's expectations has been one that I have not been able to shake for, I'm 33 now, and it's almost 33 years. And it's now been so profound for me that I can sort of really start to shake off that story, that I've been able to create the program that I create and can help my clients through the kind of stuff that I've also been through. And it's really now what I believe my mission and my passion is in life.
Do you have and I'll explain why I'm asking this in a second. Do you have like a morning and evening rituals that you go through? And the reason why I'm asking that is, once we've recognized that we need to kind of give ourselves self-love and self-care and to actually take care of ourselves better, this process often works better with routines in place, particularly in the morning and in the evening. So do you have routines, and what kind of things do you use?
I do. So the way that I coach my clients is through a 5-step process, which is basically around the foundations of self-love, which I believe is our physical health. Because at the end of the day, we spend 100% of the time in our bodies. Now, dream states, and I won't go into all that, but, we live in our bodies. So, looking at going out for a daily walk, looking at, tracking your calories and trying to be mindful around food, making sure that we're drinking enough water, making sure that, we're getting our thoughts down on paper and, not allowing all this stuff to just clutter in our mind. And really there's, like you say, that there are routines and practices that I believe self-love can be brought down to, rather than it being like this kind of abstract idea that doesn't really mean anything. Like you say, we do need to bring it into actual day-to-day life. So one of the questions that I started asking myself a few years ago, which was really powerful for me, was, if I loved myself, what would I do? And asking myself that question in any given moment really allows you like a completely different perspective, because you're so much more conscious now of the choice that you make next after you ask yourself that question. Like, if I loved myself, would I go out for a walk? If I loved myself, would I drink more water? If I loved myself, would I have this conversation with my partner? Like, you can use that question in any given moment in your life, and it will give you the clarity that you need on what is my next step.
Okay, and do you do things like, you talked about writing stuff down, so do you mean like a regular journaling practice, or do you just pick up a pen and a piece of paper when you feel like it? How does that work for you?
So every single morning, my morning, I have a morning routine that lasts for about 45-50 minutes every single day. So I'll get up, I'll make a peppermint tea, I'll drink a pint of water, and I'll make a coffee. Then I'll go upstairs, sit down at my desk that I'm sitting at now, and open my journal. And I'll literally just start writing on the page, what is it that I want to talk about today? And then by writing that question, whatever wants to come out just naturally comes out. And then what I have found really helps me is if something comes out such as like negative self-talk, like, you know, I don't think that I can do this, or I don't have enough money, or I'm feeling anxious about X, Y, and Z, I will start writing whatever thoughts and feelings come up, and then I will write down what is it that little Dan. So I address this as little Dan, like my inner child, the child version of me. What is it that little Dan wants to be heard? And I literally, from that place, I can then step into like the loving, nurturing parent, and I can then start to reassure little Dan and say, look, I hear your concerns, and, you know, I'm grateful that you share them with me, but I want you to know that, you know, I've got us. Everything is going to be okay. And then I'll go into more detail about whatever specifically little Dan has shared with me, and just really reassure him. And then from that point, once I feel like I've journaled what I need to journal, I'll close my journal, and then I'll read for 15 minutes. And for me, this morning routine it's one that I created at the very start of lockdown, because me and my girlfriend had just moved 260 miles north. And it was literally just us two. And I knew that I needed to create some routines in my life. And that morning routine that I've created has been so powerful for me. And if for whatever reason, one day it doesn't happen, like I'm in a rush, I get up late or whatever it is, I know that I haven't done my morning routine.
How do you know? Do you not feel good? Do you feel on edge? How do you know
Yeah,
that you've not done it?
I just feel off. Like I feel like my mind's kind of cluttered, and I don't have that sense of like peace, and I don't really have like that deep sense of purpose throughout my day if I haven't like uncluttered my mind. I feel like I carry it around with me all day until the moment I actually go to sleep. And then when I wake up the next morning, I reflect on the day before, and that is my motivation to make sure that I do my morning routine again.
Yeah, that kind of makes sense. And do you have like a wind down routine in the evening, or is it simply sort of the morning routine sets you up for the rest of the day, and then just when you finish, you go to bed?
So I won't watch TV at least an hour or so before I go to bed, and the reason for that is I feel like whatever I'm watching just takes up so much space in my mind, and I'll be thinking about certain things, and so I will get into bed, and again I'll just read for 10 or 15 minutes, and I'll put my book down, and I feel so ready to go to sleep. Like I know my body's ready to go to sleep.
So we were talking a minute ago about how you help your clients. You said you had the foundation was physical fitness. Do you
Yeah.
get your clients to build routines for themselves?
Yes, I do. So I won't tell them exactly what to do. Like it's not my job to say to someone, you need to weight train 3 times a week, or, you know, you need to drop carbs from your diet. What I do with my clients is literally just ask them questions like, what kind of exercise do you like? How many times a week would you like to exercise? Like, what foods do you enjoy? What meals is it that you're struggling with throughout the day? And by asking these probing questions, it enables them to start creating a lifestyle and a routine that suits them, rather than me trying to give them my lifestyle and routine. And really that's what I've recognized was the difference between me as a personal trainer and now me as a coach. Because as a personal trainer, I felt like my job was just telling them, just giving them knowledge and just telling them and letting them get on with it. Whereas as a coach, it's so much more about me guiding them and them creating the lifestyle and the routines for themselves. Because as we all know, if we've created something for ourselves in our life, we're so much more likely to maintain that routine. rather than someone telling you you need to do something. It's like, for instance, someone going to the doctors and the doctor saying you need to lose 4 stone because you're morbidly obese. What are the chances of that person really losing that weight because they want to lose it? Probably very slim. Whereas if they recognize that they need to lose the weight for themselves, that it will just be so much more natural, and they won't hate the process, because it's a process that they've fallen in love with and they've created for themselves.
What do your clients tend to come for help with when they get in contact with you?
What it seems like they come for help with to begin with is weight loss. My clients seem to sign up with me because they want to lose weight, but actually once we dig a little deeper, they don't really just want to lose weight. They want to break free from the stories of, not being enough, and fear of rejection, and all the stories that they carry with them day to day, in interactions with their partner, or work colleagues, or just in life. I think really once you start to break it down, they actually just want to be liberated from all the ways that they hold themselves back. But originally they're sold on weight loss because probably they feel like they just need to lose some weight, and once they've lost the weight, they will feel better. But once we really start going into it, they recognize that they actually need it so much more.
You mentioned earlier on that there was kind of 5 steps in your process, and kind of the foundation was the physical side of things. What are the other 4 steps that you take your clients through?
So it's daily steps, which means going out for a walk, drinking enough water. So however much water they're drinking at the minute, we look at ways that they can increase their water intake. Calories, tracking their food every day. So the app that I use is MyFitnessPal. Exercise, so incorporating a form of exercise into their week, whatever exercise that is that they want to do, and journaling. So I'll start them off with a few journaling prompts, like if I loved myself today, I would ... and then they finish it off. But really, that is the foundations of my program. It's those 5 steps, and from there, each week we go into kind of like a self-reflection homework that I'll send out to them, and then on our next call, we'll go through that homework process, and really just it enables for deeper conversations, because it can be really hard to open up about the stuff that we're struggling with. And if we don't feel safe enough to open up, then we won't open up. And if we're not kind of probed enough, then our ego will just tell us, like, it's not safe to open up, don't share your struggles. And really, once we start removing, all the fears, then we can actually get down to the nitty-gritty and have the real conversations that need to be had.
Yeah, you get all the stuff out of the way so you can move forward. I completely agree with that. So
yeah,
what's next for Dan? I mean, what's kind of the next 5-year plan looking like for you?
So something that kind of may have been like a trauma response growing up as a Jehovah's Witness, but one of my highest values in life is freedom. I don't like anything that makes me feel claustrophobic or caged or like put in a box. Mm-hmm. So one of the goals that me and my girlfriend have is to buy a camper van in a couple of years and just do some traveling together, and really just create a business where I'm helping people through all the stuff that I've been through, and it also gives me the life that I want to live.
So where can people reach you? What's the best place people get hold of you, Dan?
I'm very active on Facebook and Instagram. And actually on Instagram, I've got the link in my bio to sign up to my emails, where I talk about all this sort of stuff each week. Probably Instagram is the best place.
And what's your handle on Instagram? It's not Dan's iPhone, is it?
No, it's not. It's Dan Reader.
No underscores or anything, straight Dan Reader, yeah?
Just Dan Reader, yeah.
Okay, well, don't
Yeah.
worry about that too much. I'll put that in the show notes. So,
Okay.
Dan, listen, it's been an interesting story, and I completely agree with you that we don't take care of ourselves enough, particularly with the body and mind as a single unit. I mean, for so long, you know, the medical world and people just thought the mind and the body were two separate things, but now people are starting to see that it is obviously one single unit, and they both need to be in tip-top condition if you want to move forward in life. Final words.
I think
Sorry.
a lot of what is being pushed is around having this perfect body, and it's so detrimental because people believe that if they have this body, then everything will be perfect, and that really isn't the case. You have to start looking at, you know, all your emotions and, you know, all your thoughts, and really start just doing some self-reflection. And, you know, you can do that while you're improving your health and your fitness. But if you're just doing that to improve your body, you will never feel the love and the connection and the fulfillment that you want to feel.
Yeah, you never be satisfied, will you? Because you go from, you know, 15%, 22% body fat to 15%, and then, well, that's too much. You go down to 10%, and then you look at going down to kind of 5%, which is just not sustainable without making yourself really, really ill.
Yeah.
So, Dan, it's been fascinating, mate. Any final words before we finish today?
One of the things that I really do say is our mess is our message. And what I mean by that is I'm not special, you know, with my story. It doesn't make me better than anyone. And in fact, coming on here, what I wanted to say before we even started was, you know, coming on here makes me feel a little bit anxious, because I do have this fear that, you know, a lot of us do, that what if I'm not received well, or, you know, whatever story it is. And what I believe is so important is we need to share all of our struggles and, you know, all of these thoughts that we all have that hold us back in life, that, you know, what if someone doesn't like me, or what if I'm rejected? Because if we can start to normalize these stories and these thought patterns and these feelings, then they don't seem to carry so much weight, and we can just connect as human beings rather than looking at each other as, you know, comparisons and goals to achieve, where we just see the humanness in everyone.
Yeah, I completely agree, Daniel. Thank you for that. Listen, it's been great talking to you. Thank you for watching for the show, and I'll see you on the next episode. Thanks a lot, Dan. Speak to you soon.
Thanks, Paul. Take care.